Well, the developing story this afternoon is about the mayor of Tshwane, Murunwa Makwarela, who's been disqualified as a councillor. Makwarela was elected to the position of executive mayor last month, but it has since emerged that the COPE councillor was sequestrated in 2016 and has been unable to produce proof of his rehabilitation. This disqualifies him from holding office as a councillor. Let's get more on this now from the city's head of communications, Selby Bokaba. Mr. Bokaba, good afternoon. Welcome to today here on eNCA. Thank you very much for your time. So you have no mayor now.
Good afternoon, Braden and the viewers. That's a difficult one. All I can say is that we have written to the Gauteng provincial electoral officer of the Independent Electoral Commission, informing him of a vacancy that has occurred in the city of Tshwane following the disqualification of a PR councillor for the party COPE, Dr. Murunwa Makwarela. So we are waiting way forward from the IEC on how to proceed.
But the law is clear that if he cannot produce evidence that he's now rehabilitated from having been insolvent, as he was found to be in 2016, he cannot be a councillor.
Well, the law is very clear on that, Braden, that if you are an unrehabilitated insolvent, you do not qualify to be a councillor. But remember, that is a process that is between the IEC and the candidate councillor at the time in 2021. So basically what happens is that IEC furnishes you with a form which you fill in. And it stipulates that in terms of this provision of the constitution, and then you are not supposed to be an insolvent, and then you make a declaration. So we don't know what happened in the form that Dr. Makwarela signed between himself and the IEC, whether or not he declared. So that is why city manager then, after he had received correspondence from one of the parties represented in council in Tshwane, which had been alerted of this situation, engaged with Dr. Makwarela and gave Dr. Makwarela an ultimatum by which he should respond. And when the ultimatum period lapsed, the city manager had no choice but to write to the IEC informing them of this development. So IEC will then inform us of the way forward, because this is a matter that is basically between the councillor and the IEC.
This must be an urgent matter for the city manager to have taken the step of writing to the provincial IEC to say, please clarify the status in terms of his financial standing of Mr. Makwarela. It's a very urgent matter because the way we are looking at it from the outside is like effectively his position as councillor is in trouble unless he can prove that he's rehabilitated.
You're quite correct, Braden, and that is why I want to delink the position of councillor to that of executive mayor. We are dealing here with the primary issue of him being a councillor. Was he eligible to be a councillor or not? According to information before us, we don't have evidence that proves otherwise, that he was eligible. So the onus was on him, adducing evidence to the city manager proving that indeed he qualified or he was eligible to be a councillor. So in the absence of such evidence, the city manager then had to act. Because failure to act on the part of city manager, then he would have been complicit in this matter.
So if the response is he was not eligible to be a councillor because he was not he's not yet rehabilitated from an insolvency perspective, he can't be a councillor, and then you carry on that sentence. He can't then sit in that council to stand for election as a mayor. So you have no mayor.
Well, let me answer it this way, Braden. Remember, we don't know whether a councillor Makwarela had been rehabilitated or not.
But he hasn't produced. But he hasn't produced any evidence. You guys asked him. A member of the council wrote to the city manager, said, "I've given him an ultimatum." The city manager did the same, and there's been no response.
Yes, but then so we are working on the assumption that there's no such a document on his part, because we had requested it from himself, and he has not yet finished us with it. Maybe it is there, we don't know. Maybe he will finish us with that document later. But as things stand, we have not received it, and we gave him an ultimatum by when he should do it, and he has not done it.
And as things stand, you don't have a mayor, technically speaking.
Well, technically speaking, you may say we don't have a mayor, yes.
So what will be the next steps while you are waiting for the IEC in Gauteng to respond to the city manager's correspondence?
So IEC will have to come back to us and confirm that indeed a vacancy exists, and IEC then will look into the list of the of COPE, because they look at who was top of the list. Maybe if Dr. Makwarela was number one, they'd be the second person. If that person is still in the party, IEC then will make those arrangements. And after that is done, then city manager will have to convene a meeting with the chief whips of all parties that are represented in council, and then they will have to agree on the date. That is, if IEC confirms that everything that we assume is the case, then a council meeting will have to be convened for the election of the executive mayor.
Timing is of essence, you would agree, because, post the departure of Randall Williams as the mayor, there was a bit of an instability, even leading up to the departure of Randall Williams. Tshwane needs stability. Therefore, timing will be of essence. Are you putting pressure on the IEC in Gauteng to move quickly, or do you have an idea by when you could get a response?
Well, they have within 14 days. We have within 14 days for the vacancy to be filled. So I believe that IEC will act with agency, considering the situation that we are in as the city of Tshwane, where we don't have the executive mayor, neither do we have the mayoral committee, and the city cannot function without the executive political head. Remember, there are a number of things that we have to do that are legislated. For instance, the passing of the adjustment budget. And you cannot do that if you don't have a MACO one. You cannot do that if you don't have an executive mayor. The adjustment budget was supposed to have been passed not later than the 28th of Feb. We have engaged with National Treasury, and they've given us an extension until the end of March. So you are quite correct. All these processes are urgent, and we are hoping that the executive mayor or council will be convened for the purposes of the election of the executive mayor, and that council will also ensure that the new executive mayor will have to make sure that he appoints MACO so that we can comply with the laws of the country, which requires of us that council needs to approve the adjustment budget.
Okay, Ntate Bokaba, before I let you go, final question, just standing from the outside now. You've explained where the process is at. Is the executive mayor in office? Can he come to the council chambers and say, until this matter is sorted out, I'm the executive mayor?
Braden, I would ask you that you perhaps redirect that question to him. I cannot, where I'm seated now, say there is an executive mayor in office. We don't know whether he will interdict this process. We don't know what the position is.
Okay, so it would be fair for us as media to say there's a huge question mark about the mayoral seat currently in Tshwane until the IEC in Gauteng has responded to the city manager's correspondence about his eligibility or ineligibility to have stood in 2021 as a councillor.
But then you'll appreciate that we are in uncharted waters. You know, we have never found ourselves in this situation before. So we are all trying to understand what is happening. And hopefully by tomorrow, there will be clarity on this matter, on the status of the executive.
Okay.